And we are live. Do this thing on a Tuesday. It's orange and blue today. Big day. Big day in the National Football League. NFL trade deadline has come and gone. The Denver Broncos didn't do a damn thing except trade away Baron Browning. Huh. So why didn't they do more? Why didn't they get more involved in some of the trades that went down today in the NFL? Cecil, Lammey with Andrew Mason on assignment. It's time to talk about the Broncos' inactivity at the trade deadline. And I'll get this out of the way. I understand people are saying take the long view. Mace himself has been saying take the long view with this team. My man Dover on Dover and Cecil has been saying, you're on schedule. You finally rebuilt. You finally done what you're supposed to do. So stay on schedule, stay on target, as Porkins would say. I'm just saying I'm on Bo's time. And Bo looks like he's accelerated. Looks like this team is ahead of where they're supposed to be. Baltimore game notwithstanding. Okay? And that was awful against an elite team. But your talent gap was so very obvious. You're not good enough in a lot of positions. And you could have added to those positions. And you just didn't. Now, were they involved? Was the phone ringing at Broncos Park powered by Common Spirit? Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm absolutely positive that it was, and that there were conversations that were being had. But at the end of the day, you didn't do anything on a day where you could have done a few things. Now let's get into this and see what went down in the trade department across the NFL, and then why the Broncos weren't more involved in deals out there. And again, not a ton done. Today is probably about 5 trades that happened. So not a flurry of activity, but you did see some teams that were already interested in making moves, and in that, championship window that made some moves, like Baltimore trading for Tre'Davious White, stuff like that. Broncos weren't going to need a corner. They weren't going to go after a corner there. But you do see Washington acquires Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints didn't get him. So thank goodness for that. The Steelers getting Mike Williams. Let's talk about this, because the Steelers and Russell Wilson get the big-bodied Mike Williams from the Jets. Of course, the Jets get Davante Adams a couple of weeks ago, and so they can move on from Mike Williams, and he basically became expendable. They give up a 2025 fifth-round pick for Mike Williams. Mike Williams is big and fast and physical and always hurt. So am I upset that the Broncos didn't go get Mike Williams? Not really. But if Mike Williams was added by the Broncos, he'd be their second best receiver. Right now, Bo Nix is their second best receiver. And I say that half jokingly. Like, you don't have the receivers. And I don't want to see little Jordan Humphrey get any sort of targets going forward. Seems to be a disaster anytime you throw him the ball. Josh Reynolds could be back against the Chiefs. Put a pin in that. We'll see tomorrow what the podium brings from Sean Payton. See how that goes. But you don't have wide receiver talent outside of Courtland Sutton, who's been fantastic with Bo Nix. How about you give him more? It's not there with Troy Franklin. Doesn't mean it won't be there, but it's not there now. And you need help now. You're in a playoff window very slightly now. You're not able to hang with the NFL elite. The Baltimore game proved that. But it's not like you're some slappies that are only going to win 5 games. They're never going to win another game after this. No, that's not true. They have the opportunity now in week 10 to get back on the winning track against Kansas City, hand the Chiefs their first loss of the year. And had you added more talent, you'd have a better opportunity to do that. They were in on some conversations with Deontay Johnson. Of course, that deal already goes down. And Carolina just selling everybody. Jonathan Mingo goes to the Cowboys. I'm like, why? Dallas, you're not going anywhere. At least the Broncos can go somewhere. Dallas is clearly going nowhere. And they add a wide receiver, a former second-round pick in Mingo. So it's like, why isn't Denver in on Mingo? And I'll bring up Mingo and his compensation here in just a little bit, but it's like nothing was happening. 4th round pick, by the way. That's a little much, honestly. That's a little much for a second rounder who hasn't done and lived up to his draft hype, certainly, from Ole Miss there. So, so it's Mingo and a 7th were acquired by the Cowboys for a 4th. That's still too much, in my opinion. So you can throw in every throw-in pick you want. It's not going to matter. But Mike Williams for a 5th. All right, not a fan of Mike Williams. I'm not saying this would be the move that would have put the Broncos over the top, but you do something. Standing pat. I mean, you're not good enough to stand pat. And for me, and Mike here in the chat room, Mike's a real one. He says, I'm fine with not buying at the deadline. Draft is loaded. Okay, that's fine. It is loaded. But what if you need a left tackle? All right, you can go to the second round and get a wide receiver, running back. Okay. But now you're relying on a rookie. And what I said earlier today on Dover and Cecil, I'll repeat here today. It's week 10. So you essentially have 8 games left to kind of see what you have with Bo Nix and any sort of new acquisitions. Let's say you had gotten Mike Williams. Not a long-term answer, but maybe in 8 weeks you go, wow, him and Bo really mesh. We got to keep them together. Let's say you had gotten Khalil Herbert. More on him in a little bit. Now, instead of drafting a rookie running back, because Javonte's not, he's okay. I don't want to be mean, but Javonte's not the best. Let's just say that. Javonte's not getting it done. And Jalil's role is very limited, and it's going to be very limited. I talked to Joe Lombardi about Jalil last week. Like, could you envision doing more? He's like, yeah, but you're not going to give him 25 carries. Well, they couldn't even hardly use him after he started the game against Baltimore. In a game where they had to play catch-up football, your change of pace back was hardly out there. Why? You don't trust him in pass pro. So I get what Mike is saying here. And again, Mike's a real one. I don't have any issue with Mike. But like this whole like, oh, I'm glad because the draft. I'm Mr. Draft, and I'm telling you, get guys now because the draft's not enough. 2025 is supposed to be the year. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. We're like, well, it's 2026 now. But then in 2025, what had happened is you added a bunch of rookies. Like, yeah, the rookies are fine. And yeah, they are stacked. But they're still rookies that you would have to be relying on. What if you had gotten a Jonathan Mingo with a couple years left on his deal to really examine? And in 8 games, man, him and Bo were clicking. You're still going to get a wide receiver next year, most likely. But now you're not relying on a rookie wide receiver, or you're not relying on Troy Franklin to get it. Doesn't seem like he's going to yet. Marvin Mims, that's not clicking. Give him one more year, but it's not clicking. Reynolds is, pretty much one and done. How much time does Sutton have left? Like, these are all conversations we have to have. And if you added talent at the trade deadline, Jonathan Mingo, Mike Williams, Khalil Herbert's the one I'm really stuck on. You would have had an audition to be like, okay, we gave up a 6th round pick, the pick you got for Baron Browning. You have a free pick, a free move you could have used, and you didn't use it. Why? Is it because you feel like you're not there yet? Maybe. But what kind of message does that send to the locker room? You're not going to tell them they're not there yet. Nobody's saying Super Bowl. But your playoffs are definitely in the conversation. You could have done more to benefit that. Do you really want to go to the playoffs and get beat by Buffalo 41-3? I don't think anybody does. You want to go to the playoffs and at least be a tough out. Again, nobody's saying Super Bowl. But, I mean, is it good enough to just get back there because it's been so long? Or is it good enough to get back there and show you can hang? And, man, you're really going to be a tough out next year because you were a tough out this year and you're a playoff contender from week 1. You could do that if you had players that had an 8-game audition with Bo Nix. It's really about building around Bo. It's really about putting the best around Bo. Roport saying stay put is fine by me. That's cool. Rickus Rick says depth is an issue. Salary cap issues, not really. And I understand when people are like, and the T. Higgins thing was always bunk. I'll get to DK Metcalf in a little bit. But the T. Higgins stuff, that was always the most bogus thing to talk about ever because he's an unrestricted free agent. As far as the salary cap issues go, Rickus to Rick, It's Walmart. They can pay for whatever they want. They're going to give you the minimum salary and give you a gigantic bonus if there's always enough money. That's the case for almost every team in the league. It's most certainly the case for the Denver Broncos. You can work around the cap. You can finagle the cap. It's real easy when you've got owners that are worth $70+ billion. Richest owners in all of sports. Pretty easy to do that. So salary cap and, oh, Russell Wilson shaking your fist. Yeah, not really. You've got money. You've got cash. And cash is king. So Brad D says, boy, howdy, I think it's all about rebuilding. That's right, but I'm not a fan of kicking the can to 2026. Not that Brad is doing that. But I'm not a fan of being like, well, and then next year, and then you just keep going. Like, you have an opportunity to make the playoffs this year. You have the opportunity to show you're a tough out this year. You have an opportunity to get an 8-game audition with Bo Nix this year that now you don't because you didn't want to trade a 5th-round pick. What? And again, I'm Mr. Draft. So late-round picks, forget them picks. Day 3 picks, and I'm not a 4th-rounder. I would have been comfortable with the 4th-rounder. But yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, sure. Swap them all day, collect them all, trade them all, whatever. Add talent. Talent, preferably like a Mingo that would have time left on the contract. You don't want to rent a player. You're not at the point where you can rent a player if you're the Denver Broncos. So for me, it's about why couldn't you have done more now? Broncos Stampede says fire George Payton. I wouldn't say that. I would just say, man, I wanted George to do something today. Late round picks, again. Late round picks, take a chance, see what you've got. Your talent isn't good enough at running back. Jaleel McLaughlin's the nicest guy. He can show up at 3:30 in the morning. It won't make him better than what he is right now. It's pretty good right now. But again, it's limited. He's limited. You're not talking about Jaleel McLaughlin as Phillip Lindsay or Justin Forsett or any sort of other smaller back that was a 1,000-yard rusher. He's just not that guy. He doesn't break any sort of tackles. He has no contact balance whatsoever. So he can get to the pylon, but if you grab his shoelaces, he's going to fall down. That's just the way he is. So Khalil Herbert, Virginia Tech back, basically the 4th-string running back for the Bears, 3rd string, if you don't include Travis Homer, who's a special teams guy only, basically. But you're beyond DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson, like, Khalil Herbert can play. You add Khalil Herbert. He doesn't need to come off the field. He's your best back on the roster. And you have a guy that Sean Payton likes because he can catch passes. He's not Alvin Kamara, totally not Alvin Kamara, but you have more of a Kamara skill set. Audric Estime is not a Kamara skill set. He's more of a Mark Ingram skill set, but even Mark Ingram was much better than Audric Estime. That's a rookie that you can't trust. 15 carries, 2 fumbles. If he fumbles again, I mean, I cut him. They're not going to, but that's where I'm at with Estime. I don't need to see any more fumbles from the kid that you can't even trust in pass protection. Can't trust him as a receiver. You can give him some carries, but then he's a power guy who takes a step this way before he hits the hole. Either slow down when you're taking the handoff so you can time that hole better, or just run straight through everybody. I think Marshawn Lynch would say, run across the blanky blanker's face. That's what Audric Estime should do. Instead, he gets the handoff. He does this, which is no good because he's not a this type of back. He's a straightforward attack you back. You're looking for that pass catcher. You're looking for that Kamara-ish. Again, Khalil Herbert is not Kamara. Don't at me, bro. But he would have been an upgrade for this team at the running back position where you need help. You don't run the ball. You don't run the ball at all with Bo Nix when you need to help Bo Nix by running the ball. So disappointed today that the Broncos didn't make a move. Hopefully they activate Blake Watson, or they activate Donald Parham, or they activate A.T. Perry. Surprised I haven't seen an A.T. Perry question in the chat room. Y'all chat, love A.T. Perry. That's fine. He's interesting. He's very interesting. He's like a faster Tim Patrick. So very interesting. Jason here in the chat room says, I was wondering if Thielen couldn't pass a physical. Yeah, he's a little bit banged up. Hamstring, right? I believe it's hamstring. Top of my head there with Adam Thielen. So there you go. Maine says, what up? No moves. I guess we trust our wide receivers. Maine, I would say you're correct, but then my question would be why? Why do you trust little Jordan Humphrey? I don't care if he's from the Saints and the nicest guy ever. Why would you trust Josh Reynolds, who can come back against Kansas City, but has already been hurt and drops too many passes? Why would you trust Devon Vele? Vele catches a lot that's thrown his way. Doesn't catch everything, but catches most everything. He's just not much of a threat after the catch or to create much separation. Outside of Courtland Sutton, why do you trust Marvin Mims? You don't. Why do you trust Troy Franklin? You don't. When Bo overthrows Troy Franklin on that would-be touchdown against Baltimore, I had a lot of people tweeting or texting me saying Franklin would have dropped it anyway. So Maine is right here. I guess they trust their wide receivers, but why would you trust your wide receivers? Unless you're going to activate A.T. Perry, I don't know why you don't try to make a move or get involved with a Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, something like that. I believe Broncos Stampede here. We're in the playoffs, need to make moves. Because losing to Buffalo in the wild card round 41-3 isn't great. It means you get to the playoffs, good. You haven't been there since Super Bowl 50, but can you be a tough out or win a playoff game? Possibly. Edward is a real one. He says Broncos need to see what some of the practice squad players can do, those who can run, block, and catch. That's right. Here's the A.T. Perry question. I just hadn't got to it yet. Taylor, do we see A.T. Perry this week? I mean, I blankety blank hope so. It's been way too long. Like, he's been here. He's been ready since the Saints game. You could have played him. So now Saints, Panthers, Ravens, yeah, it's time to play A.T. Perry and see what he can do. We'll see if the Broncos do that. And Njoku would have been nice. The Browns came out and said, we're not trading Njoku, which means they don't like what they've been offered for him. Were the Broncos involved in that? They should be. Seattle came out with a player that nobody really even considered would be on the trade block and said, we're totally not trading DK Metcalf, which means we would have traded DK Metcalf, but they weren't getting the offers that they sought. So I'm not a fan of the T. Higgins fantasy. I would have been a fan of DK Metcalf because that's a number one. Metcalf is a 1, Court is your 2, whoever is your 3, doesn't matter. You could have got DK Metcalf and it would have been expensive. It would have been more than a day 3 pick. That's for damn sure. But that guy is an immediate pro, steps right in. You trust him right away. He's a big-bodied, physical player. Sean Payton said Superman's not walking through that door. Well, DK Metcalf kind of looks like Superman. So there you go. Just a little discouraged that they wouldn't go out and do something, especially after the Baltimore game where the talent gap was just so wide. Jason says, happy the Chiefs signed Lattimore. They wanted him. I reported that last week. Now, I didn't say Lattimore by name, so I wouldn't give any source information away, but I did say last week on Dover and Cecil, watch out. The Chiefs got Uche to rush the passer, and they want a corner. They want another defender. I knew it was Lattimore, but again, I didn't want to betray anybody that I talked to, and they were in on it, and then the Commanders got him because you have the attraction of Jaden Daniels. You have the attraction of Bo Nix. It's something, maybe an off-season content or a conversation, but you have the attraction of Bo Nix, and by Bo Nix looking so good and being ahead of schedule, in my opinion, you're going to be attractive to defenders or other offensive players, much in the manner in much less scale than Peyton Manning. But it's like when Emmanuel Sanders lied to the Chiefs. He was meeting with Andy Reid. He got the phone call from the Broncos. He looks at his phone. He's like, oh, coach, I got to go to the hotel. I got the bubble guts. He goes back. He doesn't even go to the hotel. He just goes to the airport, flies to Denver, signs with the Broncos because of the attraction, the implication, the attraction of that Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, Bo Nix is not a Hall of Famer yet, but like Jaden Daniels with his play, you want to go play for him or you want to go play for Caleb Williams, who has all the talent in the world, can't throw yet. Caleb will come around. I really think it's Eberflus. And that whole situation in Chicago has been a mess from day one because they shouldn't have kept Eberflus and they hired Shane Waldron. Caleb Williams will be better, but it's not looking good right now. And he's got Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Bo's got Sutton and what? You could have got him a little something. Could have treated Bo. Treat Bo, right? There you go, Bo. Here's Mike Williams for 8 games. Here's Deontay Johnson for 8 games. Here's DK Metcalf forever. Yeah, it would have cost something. The price of winning. So next year, that's fine. You could have got an 8-game audition before next year. And I like that. I like that idea. Rickus Rick says we need to see AT pairing Blake Watson. Damn straight. Square biz is what I would say. How did KC get Hopkins ahead of Denver? Again, it's the attraction. You want to go to Denver or you want to go to KC? And listen, I can't stand Kansas City. Respect the hell out of Brett Veach, their GM. I think he's the best in the league. But yeah, I mean, you want to go play for Pat Mahomes? Hopkins chose that because he's in a ring. He's ring chasing. You come to Denver, you're not yet ring chasing. So there you go. Build through the draft. That's true, but also that takes time. So how about accelerating things? Build through the draft 1000%. And Mace already said it, so I'll repeat it from the very top. That's Greg Penner. They want to build through the draft, not spend a bunch of money in free agency. A guy like Jonathan Mingo, still a couple years more left on his contract, and worth the second round contract. So it's not like he's making much. So there you go. Needed to trade for a tight end. Yeah. And Mike, again, draft this stack of tight end. Yes. Here's the problem. A lot of tight ends take 3 years to get going. Not always the case. So again, now we're further kicking down the can. Well, the draft is stacked at tight end. That's true. That take 3 years to develop. You could get David Njoku right now. So there you go. Cowboys got fleeced. Yeah, Cowboys are tanking, but they added a receiver, which is weird. Broncos have no cap space. West, it doesn't matter. You can always finagle the cap. You can move around the cap. Especially, again, if it's a Jonathan Mingo conversation. I'm not even a Mingo fan, per se. But it's a second-round pick with 2 years left on his deal. It would cost nothing to add Jonathan Mingo to your salary cap. And somebody in the chat room, correct me if I'm wrong, where do they have like 7 million in cap space, 12 million, something? They don't have nothing. But even if they did, you could always finagle something. So the cap space thing, I've said before, the salary cap is a myth. That's mostly true. I think it's even more true now when you have Walmart, you have Walton Penner Group with all that money. You can always make bonuses. Like the salary cap stuff is, and I'm not saying this for Wes, I just think it's an excuse. Oh, so salary cap. Couldn't do it. Oh, that damn salary, that tricky salary cap. This ain't Scooby-Doo, man. Would have got away from it with it if it hadn't been for you salary cap kids. Salary cap, man. Give Palmer a shot. Yeah, I agree. Pro player moves is Cecil's bread and butter. Thank you, Brad. I'm just a super nerd. And I've always said, because people are like, you should scout for a team. And I've never scouted. I have consulted for NFL teams, never the Broncos. Although, Greg, you can hire me at any time. But my dream job, because people always are like, why aren't you a scout? I'm like, well, they call it 25 for 25. And I know they make a little more than 25,000, but they don't make a lot. And they're usually about 25 years old, and they spend 250 days on the year. Now, I'm old now. My kids are growing up, so I could hit the road, but, 25,000? Yeah, there's the unsung heroes, that's for sure. So all due respect to them. But to follow up Brad's point, my job that I would love is to be a pro personnel guy where all I do is look at everybody else's practice squad. I look at the draft too, but I look at everyone else's practice squad and depth charts and say, that guy can play. Khalil Herbert can play. I don't know if he'll ever get the shot, but he can play. It's a similar move. I'll bring up Sanders again. When Emmanuel signs with the Broncos and everyone's like, I don't know this guy. And people would look at the box score. I'm talking about media people. And be like, I don't know, Emmanuel Sanders. He never had a 100-yard game. He never had a 1,000-yard season in 4 years with Steelers, and he could play. So I like those type of discoveries, right? Of like, I know that guy can play. If you ever give Emmanuel Sanders a shot, he can be a big-time star. And he was. So again, Khalil Herbert, maybe he's something, maybe he's nothing, maybe he never does anything for Cincinnati. As they have Zach Moss with a neck injury gone for a couple months. So they had to make the move. But there were just some moves. Bargain basement prices, things are so cheap. I was like, man. I feel in football and in life, I'll get a little crunchy. There's nothing worse than saying this is the way we've always done it. There's nothing worse than that. Because then subconsciously you rest on your laurels. Well, I'm fine. This is the way I've always done it. Can you do it better? Well, we don't really make moves at the trade deadline, and this is the way we've always done it. Well, you need to be better. The Baltimore game proved you don't have the talent that you need. And maybe Jonathan Mingo is a complete bust, and Carolina was right to give up on him. But maybe not. Were the Steelers right to give up on Emmanuel Sanders? No, and they had Antonio Brown. That's why Emmanuel didn't do much with Pittsburgh, is because Antonio Brown was blowing it up. And E was a third-round pick that year. Saw him at the Shrine game, 2010 Shrine Bowl. Same year as Clint Kubiak was down there. And then Antonio Brown was a fifth-rounder, top of my head. Catching passes from Dan Lefevre. But it's like, you're not good enough now. And you didn't want to add some talent? Again, just for the 8-game audition with Bo Nix. And maybe it's the worst. Man, you shouldn't have given up that 6th-rounder. All right, go get another one. You could, a day 3 pick. The DK Metcalf thing was a different conversation, and I don't want to get off track necessarily. Like, what would it have taken to get DK Metcalf? Well, I don't know. They didn't get him. It would have taken a 1st-rounder, if not more. So that's a different conversation, but it's DK Metcalf. Jonathan Mingo, Mike Williams, Khalil Herbert, any of these guys, late-round picks. Late-round picks. And there's nothing wrong with a center and a late-round pick to just try something else. Try it out and see what you get. And I like what Mike says here. Bo's proving he's our quarterback. We're doing it a service by not building around him. And the building could have started now. Like, it doesn't have to be next year. Bo's playing right now. It doesn't have to be, oh, man, next year. We got him next year, man. Long view. Bo's playing right now. And it would have been nice to see an audition with somebody with Bo Nix out there. Nix will make you special. He can elevate you. But he's got to have better... Look how he's elevating Sutton. And Sutton's already a G. I don't think I'm too old to say G. Sutton's a real one. He's a G, right? But look at how it's back-to-back 100-yard games because him and Bo are meshing. It's together. It's Sutton's talent. He's a number 2. Well, he's making him look like a number 1 because Bo is elevating. What would Bo do for Jonathan Mingo? Guy hasn't done anything with Carolina. Maybe with Bo, he'd look better than with Bryce Young. Think that would work? I would have liked to have seen it for a late-round pick. The Cowboys did get fleeced because they're Dallas. And Josh saying, literal dart throws. Yep. Day 3 picks are so overrated. I'm a draft fan, so I will defend it and say, like, not necessarily overrated, but it's like, I agree with Josh in terms of, like, 1st-round picks, yes. 2nd-round picks, yes. 3rd-round picks, yes. Those are premium picks. Premium picks. You can get premium players. And yes, in the 7th, you can get Jonathan Cooper or whatever, but that's a hard issue. 1st-round picks, 2nd-round picks, 3rd-round picks. I don't really want to get rid of those. And I might even say 4th round. But day 3 picks, rounds 5, round 6, round 7. Yes, there are players you can get. I'm the one losing my mind because they don't draft Isaiah Pacheco. And they draft Montrell Williams. Montrell Washington in the 5th round. And he's terrible, and he can't play, and Isaiah Pacheco's right there, and you had him in your building for a top 30 visit. So I'm the guy that, like, covets that day 3. I love that part. But I also agree with Josh here. It's like, again, I don't know if overrated is the right word, but let's they should be weighted differently. Maybe that is overrated. Maybe he's totally right, and I should just say overrated. But, like, it's just a different weight. If I can have Khalil Herbert now instead of some 5th-round running back in a year, I want Khalil Herbert now. So, anyway, Cavante says, do you think Vele can be a number 1? No. He's like a 3 or 4 forever because he's not Tim Patrick. Timmy Pats had speed. And that's uncomfortable for me to say. Just because I like Vele, he catches most everything. He's a good kid. He works hard. He just doesn't understand leverage yet. I've talked to him about it because Court does. Court totally can get you flipped. Courtland Sutton will put you on a whirly whirl. Vele doesn't know how to do that yet. Doesn't mean he won't, but then even if he learns how to run better routes, he doesn't have the speed that Tim Patrick used to. So, the number's the same. The game's not. College is the same. The game's not the same. So he's never going to be a number one, ever. Even if there's a fire. Like, that's just, no. He's a 3 or a 4. And that's it. Mims doesn't look like a 1. Mims doesn't look like a 5 right now. Franklin's not going to be a 1. He looks like a 2 that you really can't trust, honestly. And, it's not enough. It's not enough. Mike says, Bo's got Sutton. That's it, period. It's Bo and Court. Yep, DMC. DMC, what's up, dude? What's up, dude? Ready to play. Tight ends normally takes over years. Yep. To that, I would say truth. Should have kept TP. That move looks worse and worse. What does Lando say in Empire Strikes Back? This deal's getting worse all the time. Yeah. That's right. Josh Reynolds. Maybe back. Daniel says I'm an idiot. I assume that's me, Daniel. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Can't win them all. Big fella, Big Al used to tell me years ago, like, it's not your job to make everybody like you. It's your job to make everybody react to you. So react to me. I think the Broncos should have done more. People I really respect, like Andrew Mason, completely disagree with me. That's fine. I'm okay. You're okay. Daniel, I hope you have a great life, buddy. So there you go. I'd really... Oh, there's Gage. There we go, Gage. Gage, you're late. I'm about ready to wrap up the show. Gage jumps in. Anyway, Mace will be back tomorrow. We'll be in the locker room together. So the show time will be 4:30-ish Mountain, maybe 5. It depends on when the Broncos, if they're late, get into the locker room or if they're on time. So they didn't do anything. They did nothing except trade away Baron Browning. And I'm a bit upset. I'm a bit upset. Would have liked to seen him, maybe a Mingo. Certainly would have liked to seen a Khalil Herbert. But anyway, that is a wrap for today's program. Here you go. Beezus says was hoping for something but didn't really expect much yet. Beat the Chiefs. Yeah, go beat the Chiefs. That's what's going to be nice about tomorrow's show and nice about today's show. Just put the Ravens game behind you. Go win against Kansas City. And not only, as Jason says, not only do we owe it to Bo, we owe it to the team. Those guys are working their ass off. You can't tell them, hey, your guy's not there yet. You can't tell Adam Troutman, you're not there yet. Zach Allen, you're not there yet. Jonathan Cooper with his new deal, you're not there yet. You can't tell any of those guys that. So, anyway. Appreciate you all. Everyone be safe out there. As I always say, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Stay tuned. And as always, please, would you forever and ever and ever just stay frosty.